Welcome back to the Usual Saints. I'm Mike D here with Jeremy, and we have special guest. Let me make sure I get this right. Is it retired Arizona State Trooper James Casey?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
All right. Want to make sure I get that right.
Correct. I wish I still did it, but I'm retired now.
Yeah, I understand.
Well, I think we all want to be retired right now. So I invited you on the show because, I was a huge fan of Live PD. So I watched you. You were, I think it would be fair to say you were probably one of the first stars of the show, people's favorite, and everybody enjoyed watching you on the show and interacting with the public.
You want to hear something cool? You want to hear a cool fact about that? When I guest hosted, I believe it was May 11, 2017, I was actually the first guest host out trend the show. I still have it saved. I trended 2 nationally in the show 4. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. The hashtag PC segment.
So I have more general questions about the show. Sure. Like, how did you get involved with Live PD? Which, if people don't know, Live PD was a show that was on, I don't know, about 4 years, I think, 3-4 years before it was
started
canceled.
2016.
And it was Live PD who had cameramen following around officers around the country and would go to different officers and watch their interaction with the public or talk to them about what was going on or watch what was going on. Sometimes it was fairly intense. Sometimes it was a little jovial. But
and sometimes it was both.
a couple of years come to mind when jovial, Daisy Dukes and finding different things in the cars with there was a man wearing Daisy Dukes one night, Mike.
I missed it. Sorry.
It was interesting.
I wish I did
too. You can find it. It was good. But how did you come to be involved with the show?
All right. It's a good question. I actually got a call from the, I don't know what they call them, bureau chief or something of the Highway Patrol Division at the Arizona Department of Public Safety, the DPS. They asked me if I would be interested in doing the show, which I said I would. And they had based it on activity level. I was a high producing arrest wise, so that was one of the things they said they really wanted.
Okay.
So that's how I got involved in it. They just called and asked, and I said, sure, I'll see how it goes. Because to be honest with you, like even the show back in the beginning, they didn't know how long it was going to last. I always kick myself because I wish I had talked about merchandising their T-shirts, because they just had no idea. So
Yeah.
I come from sorry, Jeremy, I mean to cut you off.
Ahead.
I come from a journalism background myself. So, I was a news photographer. So, I know what that's like. I've never been in a situation where, they were like really following you guys. I've been on raids and stuff like that, but we always had to step back. So, I'm sure that was a different experience. Did you ever have any prior to Live PD? Did you ever have any experience where you worked with cameramen or anything like that at all in Arizona, anything like that?
No, never. And prior to prior to Arizona, I was a city cop in Massachusetts, Pittsfield, Massachusetts, for 8 years. So in both places. No, I rode solo patrol pretty much my entire career. So that was a totally new experience for me, having somebody in the car next to me.
Now, did the show kind of pay to have extra officers on the road so that you guys could respond to more, or was it completely your normal routine?
No. I can't speak on other departments, but I know as far as our department went, no, they didn't pay anything. Our department actually had to hire extra detail officer for if Trooper Todd Poole or Steve Jacobs or I made an arrest. They just called him a transport officer, and we'd call him. He would transport him to the jail and, get the paperwork process. But no, I've heard other agencies had squads working, the Live PD detail. It was just the two of us, me and the other trooper who I worked with.
Yeah, I didn't know. Maybe they as part of their deal was to, hey, you guys can have a couple extra cops on the road because we'll pay for these two, type thing.
Yeah, no, they didn't. And I think that the thought behind that is then people would say, well, you're paying now to make arrests,
Okay.
Because I had people ask me that. Actually, when I had the cameraman next to me, that I had arrested, they would say, man, how much do you make for arresting me? And I said, I don't make anything. I said, I just do this for,
Just-
so.
Just doing your job.
Yeah.
I'm doing the job. I'm not getting anything extra, man. Like, just chill out. You committed a crime. Let it go.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is why they hired a detail officer too is because some of the arrests we had, we had to turn over to other people, so they got credit for our felony arrests, so,
Gotcha.
and they
So
didn't have to write the paperwork. That's what the worst part of it was.
So that's not to be able to get you back on patrol. They had someone else come pick them up and transport them for you.
Yeah.
Watching you do paperwork wouldn't have made good TV.
Yeah, no.
Turn it into C-SPAN all of a sudden.
Yeah, no, I don't think people want to see a 2-hour DUI,
No.
Now, I mean, I assume with the live PD, because I've seen a few episodes. I don't think I was as watching it as much as Jeremy was, but is that just a cameraman with probably a cell backpack that he's putting out a signal on, just following you guys, running around with you guys, and maybe a producer, and that's just how it goes? He's basically documenting everything. Like you said, it one night could just be pretty boring. They're checking in with you guys, nothing's happening, but then they go to the next city and there's a crazy thing going on.
Yeah. No, actually, well, okay. There was two ways they did it. On live nights, which in the beginning it was just Friday, and then when it became Friday and Saturday, I had a full car with me. I would have a cameraman, I would have the supervisor, the camera, the crew supervisor, and then an audio visual guy that, in case something. And if you ever saw it in the cars, it looked like they had takeout boxes, 4 takeout boxes on the top of the cruisers. That's how they got the satellite feed.
Gotcha.
So, and I tell you, the people that sat in the back of the cruiser, there were some of the July days. I'd look back there and they'd be sweating, and I felt bad for them. And 110 degrees outside, and they're sitting in the back of a poorly air-conditioned car.
Oh yeah, never thought about. There's probably not great ventilations in the back of the car. They got to keep you separated and whatnot.
Yeah,
That's not so good.
My Charger, when I got in my last car, my Charger was great because I had vents in the back on the roof, so somebody didn't cook back there.
Yeah.
Now, for people who don't know, what's the story like? I'm obviously not saying made famous. What tragedy happened to you? Because I know there was something where I'm reading about this guy, and obviously something horrific happened. So for people who haven't watched the show, I mean, what transpired? If you don't mind talking about it.
Oh, no, not at all, not at all. All right, on October 8th of 2014, I was on patrol, and it was about 3 a.m. And for those who know Phoenix, I was at I-17 in Indian School, and I was looking to make a turn and go south get back onto the I-17, go southbound. Anyhow, as I was pulling up to the red light, I saw it was a Kansas plated car. It had started to rain, and the driver and the front passenger both rolled their windows down, and they were just sitting there in the rain, and I was looking at them, and I knew that was a tint violation. I had my strong suspicion. That's why. And plus, the other thing is, I testified when I pulled up next to them and I was looking at them, they were both just staring straight ahead and not moving, not looking at me. So, my thought the car was stolen, but when I ran the plates, it didn't come back. So anyhow, the car made a left, get on the freeway. I didn't want to spook it because if I flipped on my lights and it took off and went into the city, I wouldn't have been able to chase it because it was an equipment violation. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to commit it to the freeway, and then I could get it. So what it did is when I U-turned, I got on the freeway, I got behind it, and the windows rolled up, and it was limo tint all across the vehicle. In Arizona, the front two, driver, passenger, they have to be 30 to 33% tint. So meaning only 30 to 33% of light can come in, you can see. Anyhow, so I pull it over. I got behind it. I pulled it over, and it pulled into a Night's End parking lot in Phoenix, just a little north of McDowell. And I walked up to the car. There were 5 people in the car. The driver, she was very scantily dressed. And the other 4 in the vehicle, they looked, I could just tell from my training experience, they were gang members. And so as I was looking at it, was a female driver, female front seat passenger, Ramon Bueno, then his girlfriend, Valeria Jaime, and then Danny Vargas sat next to him or her. So the driver, as she was getting her information to me, I was looking around. Well, Ramon, who was sitting behind her, started moving around. So I told him to stop. I had her roll the window down so I could see what he was doing, and I had everybody put their hands where I could see him. So as she, the driver, is getting the information, I'm looking at all these people, and I asked her, I said, "Hey, how long do you know these people?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm good friends." And I said, "Who's the person next to you?" And she's like, "Well, that's Cookie." And I was like, "No, no, no." I said, "Is that a real name?" And I said, "I want a real name. What's her name?" She says, "Well, I don't really know her." And I said, I said, "Well, how long have you known him?" She goes, "Well, I just met him tonight." So right there, I was actually suspecting human trafficking. That's where I was going to with that when she was saying, because it fit the profile. So I get those two, the driver and the front seat passenger's name. And as I go back, I hand my notepad, and Ramon Bueno, wound up giving me a false name. Valeria gave me her name. Well, Danny Vargas, as I testified, he was laying with his arms, across the door frame like he was sleeping. And I was putting my light on him, he wasn't responding. So I said, "Hey," I said, "Man, if you're not going to respond, I'm going to call an ambulance because, if you're that out of it, you're a medical emergency." And he just looked at me and he said, "I hate cops." And I said, "Yeah, so do I. Sign the form." And, and exactly that. And the jury, when I said that, the jury laughed too, because I have, as I explained to them, I've calmed down some of the angriest people when they scream that. I go, "Yeah, me too." And it's just a way to throw them off. So none of them laughed. They all just sat there stone faced. Vargas gave me a false name. So what happened is I got my backup there. Officer Ray Cruz and Officer Mike Alfano, they showed up. Mike went to the back of the vehicle. Ray went to the passenger side, and I went to the driver's side rear. And I was asking, because like I said, Ramon gave me a false name. So I was figuring he had just traffic warrants or something. So as I was talking to him, I said, "That's not your name." And because one name came back false, no record found, and the other one came back deceased. I don't recall which one gave me which, but that's the way it came back. So I told him that, I said, "Man, look, let's give him a false name." Well, I said, "Give me your social security number and I'll run it." And he said 60. And 602 is a Phoenix or an Arizona one. So as he said 60, I started to lean in, and when I did, as I've said over and over, I just heard an explosion. I got spun about halfway around, and I just saw the look of terror on Trooper Mike Alfano's face. And then the next thing I remember is Trooper Ray Cruz straddling me, screaming, "Casey, are you there?" So what had happened was, well, after I got shot, let me back up. So after I got shot, the car took off. Well, the driver, she didn't know that hotel very well because she could have made an immediate left and been out on the frontage road and gone. But she went around the back, and there's one way in, one way out. So as she was coming back out, as the car made that right turn onto the frontage road, Ramon Bueno leans out of the back seat window and he starts shooting at Trooper Ray Cruz and Mike Alfano as they were rendering aid to me. They left. Well, what had happened was Ramon had shot me with a .357, and I got it in the left cheekbone. That was a tough night that night.
Now,
I mean, you're lucky to be here. I mean, I know Jeremy's got a question, but I mean, 357. I'm not a gun guy, but from what I know about it, I mean, that's powerful. Yeah. So.
I was lucky in the fact, I mean, for many reasons, but he used practice ammunition, and practice ammunition, when it hits a solid object, is designed to explode. So luckily he hit my cheekbone flush, and that's what it did.
Okay.
So what was the reasoning for him that he thought that was what he needed to do? Did he have warrants or?
Yeah, he did. He was under suspicion. He had killed a girl 3 weeks earlier before I had from what I understand, it was over a drug debt that she owed the gang. And so he was muscle, and so he wasn't going back. And even the driver testified when she was on the stand that as they were getting pulled over, Ramon was in the back saying, I'm not going back. And because he's shot 2 people in the past.
Well, he was wrong about that.
Oh yeah. He's a violent guy.
Well, I mean, he went back. He's in jail
Oh
now.
yeah. He got 86 and a half day for day. So, and he's
Nice.
45 years old. So,
Did anybody else in the car get charged?
Yeah, actually, well, his girlfriend got charged with hindering prosecution because they were monitoring her, watching her, and she was making cell phone calls to him. And then Danny Vargas, he got shot, when my partner started shooting after Ramon shot, he got shot in the back. And when him and Ramon bail out of the car, he threw his bloody shirt down. Phoenix PD collected it, and they linked him to 3 unsolved first-degree murders, drive-by shootings. So he actually is doing life without parole. So, yeah, it's like I said to people, I mean, a window tint violation, and there are some dangerous people in that car.
Yeah. So your book is largely about this, right?
It's a part of it. I have what I did with the book is I basically chronicled my year up into the shooting. Um, I had I had my wife and my kids talk about what it was like when they found out, got that 4 a.m. knock on the door. Because I always said, I don't think we hear that very often. You always hear about what happens to a cop, but not the family. So I really wanted to get that out there. And then I also did a lot of research on Ramon himself. So, the reports I got, I believe if memory serves me, I think he was smoking crack by like 11 or 12 years old and, in a gang by then. And, not that it's an excuse, but, I couldn't imagine doing any of that at 12 years old.
And just for what's the title of your book is?
Oh, the
traffic stop.
Oh yeah, I always keep
Make sure we get that on there.
Yeah.
Got to put that in there,
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
So, obviously the rehab had to be quite extensive or lengthy, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I was out. Well, I was always determined to, I said I wasn't going to let him beat me. So I was always determined to get back if I could. It was about 16 months, 17 surgeries. I had the first night was 2, and that was 9.5 hours total. But I had, as I said, I think that first week I was out, after I got out of the hospital, that first week I was out of the hospital, I remember I was watching Sunday Night Football with my wife, and I said, I looked over and I said, in the afternoon, my left eye started to hurt. And then, and I mentioned something to her about the Sunday evening game. I told her, Nancy, I got to go to the hospital. I feel like someone's trying to push my eyeball out of, from the back of my head. Oh, when I got there, luckily, there were bullet fragments in both my eyes, and the one in my left was starting to move towards the cornea. So that was the next surgery I had to have. I had 5 bullet fragments taken out of both eyes. Then, they had to the whole left side of my nose was gone, so they had to reconstruct that. It was a lot. The worst answer was, and I testified this because I wanted Ramon to get I had the bullet when it hit, it blew a golf ball size hole in the roof of my mouth. And because I have titanium and not bone, I had to have a denture plate. Well, to close that, they had to graft the skin from right to left, and 155 stitches to close it. And it was an outpatient surgery. I told the jury, I said, think about it, when you get a wisdom tooth out, you get 2 to 4. I said, I had almost 40 times that amount. So,
Wow,
that was the worst.
That is crazy.
So how do you, like you said, you always wanted to go back to work. How was that first traffic stop back on the job? I mean, how do you walk up to that car again, or any car again after that?
Yeah, well, when I first went back, I went back to investigations, special investigations unit. I was there for a year. I didn't really care for it, or a year and a half, I believe. No, it was about a year. I didn't really care for it. It was more of administration than criminal. So when I went back to patrol, yes, to answer your question, I asked to ride with somebody the first night, just to, that way I could be, the contact officer and walk up on the passenger side. That kind of eased my fears. And then, I think after the next night, I worked about a half a shift with an officer, and I said, all right, I'm ready, and I was just right back to it. Yeah, maybe I have a screw loose. Maybe it wasn't not the screw loose. I was right back to it. You know?
No, I mean, we don't talk about my job too much because I work with people who I don't want to know. My clients, I don't want to know my name, but I work in a field where I deal with a lot of law enforcement, and so I understand what you mean by administrative and reports, and it gets kind of bureaucratic and annoying and stuff. But you got to do what you love, and I'm glad that you were able to get back out on the road.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, I mean, just for an example, and not to, one of the cases that I was assigned was a chief and an assistant chief in a smaller community south in Arizona, and they were talking behind each other's backs. And I was like thinking to myself, man, I didn't go through all that surgery to deal with this. I mean, this is ridiculous. You don't need me to do this. So, and actually, I think the second night I was back by myself. It was really cool. Well, not cool, it happened, but I responded to a rollover collision on I-10 by the tunnel there in Phoenix. And when I walked up, I was showing some of the newer officers. It was an older male, and I think he was like 62, 63 years old. And he had a 19-year-old female with him, 2:30 in the morning. And I was pointing out to the guys, I said, hey, do you notice something about that female? And he was like, what? And I said, no, she's not wearing shoes. And yeah, what's that? And I said, prostitution. He's working her, that way she can't run if she, so I was like teaching them. It's like, I got right back into it. That guy, 27 warrants, gave me a false name. I told him, you're not going anywhere. I'm going to bring you to the fingerprint. We fingerprinted him, and I think he had a warrant from every court in Maricopa County. So, he was a bad dude. I'm glad I got him. But once I got him, I was like, all right, I'm back and running now.
So how many cases come from, tint or, turning into the wrong lane, or just, you just have something doesn't look right about what they're doing? I mean, how much of it is that? And, okay, yeah, something's weird over there. Hey, look, they just, made an illegal turn. I'm going to go see what's going on.
That's hard. See, part of it for me is again, I just say, because I testified to it, I wasn't really a big ticket writer. So I wasn't out looking for, I wasn't out looking just to, have a whole bunch of stops and have a bunch of, because I didn't like writing tickets, especially out here in Arizona. There's fines for it's like $300 for a simple speeding ticket. I mean, it's a lot of money in my book. Yeah. So anyhow, I would look, as I used to tell when I teach the academy classes, or I would tell a younger officer, I would say, all right, you're on I-17 southbound and you see a 1994, or I guess that's way too old. You see a 2001 Chevy Beretta. And I said, and then as you're about, you run the plates, the plate comes back, mandatory insurance suspended, meaning it's not registered. And I said, as you start to move over, I said, a 2019 BMW goes flying by you at $120 on the freeway. So which one are you going to get? Oh man, I'm going after that car. I said, see, I go after that. I don't care about that. That's probably that's a speed, probably DUI. But I said, that's where you're going to get criminal activity, and that's just the way it was. Don't get me wrong. I would go after the car if it turned out, I ran the plate and it came back, everything was good. Because I did chase a guy in he had a Mustang GT and I had a Charger. And I think I caught up to about 130 miles an hour and he blew 2.7. And I was thinking to myself, man, this guy's 130 miles an hour and he's like, over 3 times the legal limit. So
that was something that surprised me watching the show, because me and my wife would watch pretty much every week because, it's more interesting than watching most TV, at least for me. I was surprised how different the rules of engagement, or however you want to call it, whether you can chase another car, what, when you let them go, what, and obviously what they were allowed to pull someone over for. Oh, I smelled marijuana, or, hey, I, this or that. And it was surprised me how different the different police station or different departments rules for how they had to conduct themselves were.
Yeah. That's, yeah, I don't know. I as far as chasing, I mean, for DPS for us, it was, well, I don't know if you saw the episode. It was sometime in the spring of 2017. I actually got the Phoenix helicopter Firebird had talked
the black car, I think, ended up in a parking lot. Is that the one?
No, I'm talking about.
Hey, man, I watched the show. I watched every
no,
episode.
no. That's I'm trying to think of which one you're talking about. This one was at night, and the helicopter was looking for it, and I found it, and it took off on me. Well, because it was in the city streets, I couldn't light it up because once I did, and it took off. I would have to brake. So what happened is we were on the radio, and Trooper Todd Poole and other units were setting up for it. Well, we got it boxed in at the red light, and I never had put my red and blues on, and the guy was he had just been paroled for a child sex violation, and and I think he said he had 10 years hanging on his head, and as I said, he dodged a bullet that night because I didn't pursue him, so I couldn't arrest him. I charged him with a misdemeanor reckless driving, but
because he wasn't fleeing from lights, he couldn't do anything.
Yeah, I know. As far as the smelling marijuana, I don't know about all that. I wouldn't, that. I would, I don't know. I get it if you use a probable cause, but I tried to stay safe with, if I had I always had a legal violation. I didn't want to go into court with, well, I smell marijuana because, I just think a good defense attorney could have a field day with that because smell it. I've smelled people burning grass, and it's you're like, well, what does that smell? And it's some guy burning grass, So
I know, I think it was West Virginia. Just their Supreme Court in West Virginia just said that it's not probable cause anymore. Just smelling marijuana doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, Massachusetts did that too, just recently because I still keep up with that, and yeah, you can't use that plain smell anymore. Those are legal terms.
I did have a question because I remember you saying something before. So, obviously there's things where you have to pull someone over, you see something, you see a violation, something like that. If you're out and you don't see a violation, I mean, is like a suspicious vehicle with no violations, is that enough to run a tag and see something, or is that against regulation? I don't know.
No, that's fine. That's a good question. No, as far as running tags, you can do that because I got asked that question on another case I had that went to trial. In Arizona, the jury can ask the officer questions. That was a question I asked. As I said, the MVD, as I explained to the jury, driving is a privilege. It's not a right. So the MVD allows us to run plates. And as I said, we ran plates for the purposes of looking for stolen vehicles, mandatory insurance suspended, which would be, no registration, no insurance. As I explained, you get hit and somebody doesn't have insurance, that's going to cost you money. So that's what we did.
Right.
Now, as far as a suspicious vehicle, I would for me, I would have to have more with that. If you couple that with, the vehicle sitting in a dark industrial area, I know it to be high crime from drugs, stolen vehicle arrest, prostitution, then I could articulate, reasonable suspicion on why. But, I've seen some of those cop shows where they just pull in and they just light up a vehicle and let's say have a call or something, or they know that area to be high crime or,
Right, I get you. Did you deal with a lot of human trafficking? Because how close is Maricopa to the border or things like that? And that doesn't have to mean anything because human trafficking takes place all over the place here in Florida. I see a lot of it. So
yeah, no. When I first started, I didn't really deal with a lot of it in Phoenix. But when I first started from 2008 to 2013, I was assigned in the Casa Grande or District 6 in Arizona is what they call it, but the Casa Grande area. And we covered a large stretch of I-10 and I-8 from Pinal, from the Maricopa down to we were in Pinal County. So it's Maricopa and Pima County, Phoenix and Tucson. We were in between the both of them. As I said, the most, I think I stopped a van one day. I was just watching traffic and it, rolled by, and, freeways out here, in that area at 75 miles an hour. And it rolled by me at about 35 miles an hour and it was about 3 inches off the ground. I wound up, there's 23 people in it.
Wow.
When I pulled it over. I talk about a case I had where I stopped a car one day for speeding and I walked up and it was a gang member and he had a 16-year-old Asian female in the front, mother, father, grandfather, and the mother was holding a baby. So 5 in the car. And anyhow, I got the guy out and I started talking to him and he's like, I'm like, I was doing the standard questions, how do you know how do you know them? He's telling me he's their friend. Well, when I went back up to, and I was trying to talk to the girl, she was just smiling and nodding her head. So I used a trick, to see if I said, "Oh, snake," or something like that. And I pointed, and she just looked at me and smiled and nodded her head. And I was like, man, they don't speak English and they don't understand English. I called the Border Patrol and they came out there. They arrested the guy for human trafficking. And they told me, they're like, you saved that girl, would have been put into prostitution. More than likely, they would have killed the old man because he was no financial value to the cartel. And then the parents would have been put to work and they would have sold the baby. So those people had, they would have been, living terribly had that continued, that journey, So I fairly regularly, from those time frames. Yeah. So one of my buddies, Mike Alfano, who was on the shooting of the night I had when Ramon, he and I always joked about the first time I believe I met him, we had a call on I-8, and that was way out on I-8 where it's desolate out there. They had suspicious activity. People were driving by and they saw people, on the side of the road and something's going on. Anyhow, we go out there and we find 300 pounds of marijuana just on the side of the road. They had dumped the load and somebody was coming back to get it, so,
okay.
And it's tough because because you got to stand with a rifle now, so that's a big amount of money to somebody. So,
yeah,
I didn't like, I can tell you that I didn't like going out there late at night.
I bet.
Do you have a case or a bust that you're most proud of, or that, I mean, obviously saving a family is, pretty big deal. Anything else that you're like, hey, yeah, I made a difference that night?
Oh, yeah. Well, the one that I had on live PD, that guy, that was actually, he was in a parking violation. I used that industrial area. It was probably about, it was right before the show went off the air. So it was 8:30 our time. 11:30 would be Eastern time. Anyhow, I found a car sitting in a no parking zone. It was an industrial area. It was all closed at that time. It was a 37-year-old man and he had a 16-year-old boy in the car. And I got the guy out of the car, and I started talking to him. And, he was telling me the kid was his friend, didn't know his friend's name. But what made it even more suspicious is, as he told me, he said, I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm bringing him home. Well, he said, hey, the kid lived in Glendale, and where they were facing eastbound and Glendale was westbound. My other thought is, well, besides, like, most adults don't pick up kids. I mean, that's obvious. But the other one is, if you did, I would have been in a well-lit area, where there's cameras everywhere. So, there's no false allegations. So that was, that right there. Well, anyhow, the guy, when I got there, he was searching for desert locations. He had a gun, knife, meth, liquor, condoms, lube, rope, and handcuffs. And he had taken that. And what we later found out is he had taken that kid to the adult video store and watched porn with him. And then when I stopped him, that guy was searching for locations to go shoot his gun. And, they had to, we were out there 2.5 hours, and they cut it down to, like a 5-minute segment. But what they didn't catch is that when I was telling that kid, I was like, man, you had no idea what that guy, that guy was going to rape you. And I said, and I said, he was going to kill you if you weren't going to be a willing participant. That kid had no idea. I mean, he was just like, no, how do you say that? I was like, man, right. So that was probably one of the best stops. Of my career. And then I've worked cases like homicide when I was in Pittsfield. I was a detective there. And I've worked sexual assault where, I always felt like a part of me was a part of that case. So, I'd say those cases, definitely stick with me.
Do you have any regrets from being on live PD?
Yes and no. I did, the good part was, what was good about it is exposure for people to see, police work, good police work. Cause, I was never in it for a show. How I was from day one is how I was from the end of it. I saw some officers, they seemed to, in the beginning, they were a little shy. And then towards the end, it was like they were working a stand-up routine, and come on, just be yourself.
You want to give names? No?
No, 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 no,
I think
no,
Jeremy.
I told somebody once, I was joking about when I was guest hosting, I'm tough. My wife doesn't like watching those cop shows with me, like Cops or the Live PD show, because I use them as like training. So I see and I like to point out flaws and stuff. So that night I was guest hosting. I won't say the agency, but Tom Morris, Dan Abrams had gone off to, I think, do his segment where he tapes it in the, or he does his segment where he's in the control room, and it was just Tom and I sitting at the desk. Well, I was wired up and I forgot. So, we're watching this, and I mean, it was like a huge officer safety issue. And I looked at Tom and I was like, "Oh my God, Tom!" I said, "I can't believe it." I started naming it, and Tom looks at me. He's like, "Whoa, man!" He goes, "You're on mic." And I said, "Oh yeah, sorry." So,
You got to always think that mic is hot, man. Always.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say anything bad, but it was just, it's probably, I guess I wouldn't really want another cop critique me. Well, I mean, if it was constructive criticism, I could take it. If it was just something like, like I had a commander once tell me at DPS, he pulled me aside and he goes, "I have to tell you, Casey." And I go, "What's that, sir?" And he goes, "I wish you were more like Trooper Poole." He goes, "He's firm. He's he's stern, and he's like, he's models a trooper." He goes, "I look at you and you're, laughing and joking with people and all that." And, I looked at him and I said, "Well, Major," I said, "I agree with you. If I was 6'3" and, built like Todd, sure, I could be that way too, but I'm not built like that." So, I come off with a stern, tough guy attitude. Some people are going to call me out on it that, I don't want unnecessary fights. So, right. And the other thing too is, I might have been laughing and joking or just doing my thing, but I was also thinking, 3 steps ahead. Okay, I was planning my, did I really care, where, you say, "Hey, where are you coming from?" "Oh, I'm doing, I'm looking for them to talk. I'm looking to, or I'm smelling to see if I can smell alcohol in their breath, and, or if people don't look to, look like the kid and the adult." I knew right off the bat that didn't look right from the jump. So, yeah.
And you mentioned Maricopa County. Is that where that sheriff made the guys wear pink? Okay.
Yeah, no, he's gone now. Joe Arpaio. No, right. He got beat, I think 1 or 2 elections ago. Paul Penzone's the new sheriff.
Okay.
And then,
gotcha.
And then to finish your question, I know I go off on a rant. The tough part with doing live PD is the internal jealousy. That was very, very tough because, especially you figure with cops, you have a lot of type A personalities. And, in the beginning, nobody really wanted to do it. And then once it started taking off in popularity, and then the stories, like I always joke about, the crazy began for me probably early 2017. I get a call from the guy in the supply room or the mail room. He tells me I got a package. And I said, "A package?" And, keep in mind, I never got mail at work. Why would I get anything mailed to the police department? So I said, "A package." I said, "I'm not expecting nothing." And the guy, I said, "Go ahead and open it." He tells me. So he opens it up and he's like, "Oh, some woman mailed you her underwear." And I was like, and I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, some woman mailed you her underwear." And I said, "All right." And he goes, "So you're going to come pick them up?" I said, "I'm thinking what to throw, add to my collection? Come on." Said, "No, throw them away." Said, "Throw them away." So that's when, but the jealousy, by the time the show was done, they were going to create our own squad for Todd, Steve, and I, and we were getting promoted. It was unreal. It was tough. It was definitely tough.
So why did the show move on from your department? Was that your department's decision or the show's or?
Yeah, it was my department's. So yeah, I was told, the first thing I was told was my celebrity was the reason they moved on. And then when I reminded them that when they asked me to meet other top law enforcement officials of federal and other state, And I did so willingly, or sick or injured children, and I did so willingly. They didn't really care too much about my celebrity then. Then it quickly changed to finances. It's too financial for us to join or to continue. And then when I was doing research for my next book, I found out the boss, the colonel, and one of the Live PD producers was trying to work on their own show. So, I'll let you, I think it was celebrity, but I think if somebody was a little jealous of somebody else, if you're asking my opinion.
Yeah, because I thought your department always came off in a pretty good light, whereas some of the other departments, the city itself might have not come off so well. Tulsa, especially to me, I mean, the officers were great, but some of the incidents they had made the city kind of look worse than I would have thought of as Tulsa, Oklahoma. I didn't realize it was such a tough town, or tough area,
Yeah.
so much crime, and and I thought that might have had something to do with why their department decided to leave eventually, or
Oh, it could be.
how it works
It
out.
could be. Yeah, no, it's good. It could be. I know what was lucky for us is we were state police. So, there wasn't really a city or a town, so we could go in different areas. And, but yeah, I guess I mean, I guess I could see that, but then the problem to me, I guess, but I'm looking at it from another standpoint, I think, I guess it does, yeah, it does political there, because you have the mayor, and the city council, they don't want to show the worst parts of the city. And then, and then Live PD, you're not going to go out and work an area where there's nothing, because that doesn't make TV. So,
Right. Hey, Trooper Casey, if you're willing, this is the first time we've ever actually been able to receive a phone call and play it so everyone can hear each other. We have our first phone call on the Usual Saints podcast. If you're cool with it,
sure, go ahead.
All right. So I think I have Bob from Florida. Bob, are you there?
Yes, we're here.
Bob.
All
right. Well, I have Trooper Casey here. Do you have any questions for him or anything about law enforcement?
Oh, sure. Well, James, first I want to thank you for your service, and keeping us all safe. I got a couple of questions about, the late development. What's your thoughts on this defunding the police? And also, if you have any comments on the Chauvin trial, if you felt that was a little bit, I mean, he used a little excessive force, but was his punishment a little excessive?
All right, the defund the police. I don't agree with that at all. Being a former police officer, a retired police officer, I don't, these ideas of having unarmed security officers making traffic stops. I mean, I got shot on a traffic stop. I don't understand that. As I said, I had a college student ask me this kind of thing. And as I said to her, I've never been part of a police budget process. So I'm really just speaking off the cuff. Do I think there's areas the police department could cut? Sure, like anything. But that goes to why are other departments not being cut? And then the other thing I think people don't realize is, I think they're starting to see it now, is when you start cutting the police and defunding it, certain areas they're going to lose their patrol, and and then you have, terrible response times. You don't have enough officers to get there. So I don't understand it. I don't agree with it. And the Chauvin trial, the second degree murder, I did not agree with. I don't really know, because I don't know if there's any premeditation. I don't really know Minnesota law, so I'm kind of speaking uneducated on it. I definitely thought manslaughter. I mean, letting him, when the EMTs get there, I mean, like they said, I heard one of the officers testify, and that is true. The police officer's first line is preservation of life. And, when medical gets there, you have to let them tend to him. You can't, sit on him for, so, do I think he was guilty? I do. I don't think it was second-degree murder, but again, I don't really know Minnesota law well. And then I just heard today, I think they're filed for a retrial for juror misconduct. So, because I saw, so.
Article just came out about that tonight, where one of the jurors was involved in a march or something. So they're trying to use that to
Yeah.
get a new
Oh, and
trial.
and change of venue. They wanted it moved out of that county. So I think after this, they're going to have, that's tough.
All right, Bob, anything else for Trooper Casey or Jeremy or myself?
Well, I guess something I could ask is, I know in the past, a lot of elected officials, they used to do a lot of ride-alongs with the police. And they'd even take them out to like the shooting range for when they have it, when the bad guys come up and then you have the schoolgirl crossing. And of course, they always failed that course. And I think that's sometimes what the public doesn't understand. You got split seconds to make a decision. And nobody, they don't understand that.
Yeah, I agree. There's a YouTube video. There's a Phoenix activist. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Jared Maupin. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Department allowed him to do their use of force training with simunition, and he failed it miserably. Because I think one of the scenarios was a guy was locked his keys in the car. He was at the trunk, and he just started rushing Jared Maupin, supposedly the cop, and he's like, and Jared just shot him. And he's like, "Why'd you shoot him?" And he said, "That was a bad shoot. He's unarmed." And even he said, he goes, "Wow." He goes, "I did not realize police, you have about a quick split second to make a decision." So I agree with you. I think that would be great to allow people to do that.
Yeah, I remember hearing a stat on Live PD where somebody who's within like 23 feet of you or something
21.
can get to you. 21 feet can get to you by the time you pull your gun and shoot.
Yeah, it's
So
called
someone
the
with a
I'm sorry, it's called the Tula rule.
Okay.
Yeah, 21 feet.
So to me, he was way over there. Yeah, it doesn't take long to get from there to here. By the time I pull out my gun, that knife is here.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah.
I don't think the public realizes that 21 feet's, longer than most people would assume.
Yeah. Well, I always tell the story, and this goes true. The one time, another time I wish Live PD was with me. It was 2016. It was the first Tuesday of the Christmas break. They had just left that last Saturday show. I kid you not, probably the first or second stop of the night, I had a guy went by me on I-17. It was probably like 9:30, 10 o'clock that night. And he was 72 and a 55. I pull him over. I walk up, I can smell burned marijuana, which is, on his breath from smoking, fresh, because I could smell there was weed in the car. And, he looked like a tweaker. I mean, you could tell heavy meth use. And the car was registered as a 3-day permit, a paper plate, and it was registered to a female in Flagstaff. Anyhow, I was sitting there watching him, as I'm putting him, I'm watching him, and I see him start dipping down like that. His left shoulder starts going down. I quickly got out and I ran up and I drew my gun and I said, "Freeze!" And I heard a loud thud. And I brought his hands up slowly and got out and cuffed him. He was reaching for a gun, stolen gun, and he had a half pound of weed in the car. He was out on bond for meth and felon in possession of a gun. And I remember in booking, I asked him, I said, "What were you going to do?" And he was like, "Well, I was going to shoot you." I said, "Why didn't you?" And he goes, "You had the drop on me." So, and I believe him. I mean, he, just for the way he was, I knew some guys talk junk, about what they're going to do to you. But, there's certain guys, I knew that I dealt with that. I knew they weren't kidding. They would have done it if they could have.
So what made you want to become a cop? Was it something you wanted to do from when you were a kid or is it? Okay.
Yeah, no, I always wanted to be when I was a kid, Okay.
Andy Griffith Show?
No, that was way before my time.
Bro, like you can't say Andy Griffith Show. Like this dude is not that old, okay?
I watched it as a kid. I'm just there's reruns. I didn't say he was watching it live. I didn't say he was sitting there every Tuesday night or whatever.
I would say for him, NYPD Blue, maybe something like that. Is that more around the time, or maybe a little bit when you were a kid, maybe something like Hill Street Blues or something?
Hill Street Blues, yeah, Hill Street Blues. My parents watched that. I was just telling my wife, we were laughing about this. The first show I actually remember watching regularly as a kid was Three's Company. When that came out, it was Tuesday nights. I grew up in Houston, so it was Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. How I remember that, I don't know, but I do.
So I mean, I don't know what other questions Jeremy has, but I wanted to make sure we got a chance to talk a little bit about your book. I want to make sure people know what to expect when reading it. I haven't had a chance yet, but definitely would look forward to it. What would people expect when they pick up a copy?
Okay, well, basically what I did is the best way I've described it is I take people on a ride along with me during the calls. I'm explaining, what I'm doing. I'm talking to people too. Then, like I said, I also have my family. I have them in on it. And I'll just give you I use a story, and it's in the book, but I always used to teach the academy when I used to teach the academy class when I come back from the shooting. So this actually happened to me right before I got shot. I used to tell them. So one night I was on I-10, and it was probably about 3 a.m. westbound. So heading to LA, Los Angeles. I'm in my, I didn't have a Charger yet. I had like the old, whatever they drive now, those Explorers or Expeditions, whatever they are. I had one of those, and some guy got on the freeway and he had a Challenger, and he hammered that thing. And like I said, there's not a lot of traffic. So I said, all right, I'll see what this guy's going to get it to. When we got to about 120, he was like starting to pull away from me. So I was like, man, I better light this guy up, as he takes off. So I lit him up. Luckily, he pulls over, and where he pulled over is under the 101, I-10, under the 101 freeway. Well, it's a large area on the middle of the road. So I made a driver's side approach on the guy. I walk up, the guy is crying, blubbering. And as I'm, shining my light in the car, I see torn up roses in his seat, smashed cake on the floorboard. And I'm looking at the guy and I said, what's going on? And the guy said, well, I don't want to talk about it. And I was like, man, you really don't have a choice. I said, you're double the speed limit, you go to jail. And anyhow, he told me that night was his 20th anniversary. He'd gotten off of work early, bought the cake and the roses for his wife to surprise her. Except when he walked in the door, she was pleasuring the neighbor. And that guy, that's where he took off, and that's where I caught him. So what I used to do is I would stop it at that, and I would say, all right, I got to ask. And I said, all the laterals, you're not allowed to answer this. I said, all the new hires in the academy. I said, who locks this guy up? And the youngest I got was 24 years old, and I had to explain to him. I said, think about it. I said, that man's been with that woman since you were 4 years old to the day you sit here. And I said, if you locked him up, I said, you might as well give him your gun and let him shoot himself. And I said, why would you do that? And, and I was trying to teach, talk to people, because you never know their story. And that's why I always debunk that. They used to tell us in the academy about, oh, you have your mind made up about writing a ticket when you exit the car. And I was like, that's crazy. Why would you do that? You don't know what the person, if, for example, like that, and then I would ask, all right, who would criminally cite him? I usually get a few. And then I would say, who gives a guy a warning and lets him go? And that's the majority of them. So I was always glad to see that. And that was one of the stories I wrote in my book. I let him go, by the way. I gave him a warning, I told him to slow down, get to his place. So I can tell you, and so like I said, and then I had my family, my boys were 15 and 11 at the time. My wife, what she went through. Because she talks about, like she was talking about coming out of surgery and stuff that I was when I was in the hospital, I was very abrasive towards her. She said, you would be friendly to people walking in, and then you would turn, just absolute vengeance on me. And I don't remember any of that. So, and that's what I told them all. I said, I want you to write it from the heart. I never read it. So I wanted that to be. And then, I have like the court stuff. I did write why the lone juror hung the attempted murder case. And I guess nowadays it's believable, but when it happened, it was a shock. And then I did some, research on Ramon. So you get an idea of what he was about.
And obviously he's a part, of your life for better or worse. I don't, do you feel uncomfortable bringing up his name, or are you past that? I saw the video of you, talking to the judge at the sentencing and whatnot. So, I'm sure it was hard, but maybe with your line of work, maybe you were expecting that and being able to do that. Maybe it was therapeutic in a way. I don't know. Do you feel
It was absolutely. Yeah, I did. I always said that, because I always said, that the shooting, talking about it was always therapeutic for me. It always helped me. So, uh, it's funny. I just had my throat. It's why my voice is a little scratchy. Is I had my thyroid removed, and it's funny you say that because I was showing the doctors and the nurses, and they're all like blown away. They're looking at the pictures. Well, the anesthesiologist walked in, and I said, "Hey," he was like, "What's going on?" And I showed him, and he turned. He's like, "Oh, no, 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 no." And then when all the rest of the nurses and doctors left, I said, "That's a hot doc." I said, "You're a doctor, and you don't like you don't." And he goes, "Man," he goes, "That's why I got an anesthesiology, because I don't want to see blood and guts." So I was like, "Okay, fair enough."
He just has to pay attention to his monitor on the side.
Yeah.
While he doesn't have to look down at the surgery.
Yeah.
He's getting paid well too. It's all right.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I asked my wife. She used to watch the show with me. She had a couple questions. One I think I already know the answer to, but if you had to do it again, would you be a cop again?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
Without a doubt.
And would you let your children pursue that?
My youngest
employment?
son, I'm torn on that. My youngest son wants to do it so bad. When he was here at Christmas time, he was just asking me, and he just turned 18. So, he's been 18 a few months ago. And, as a father, I'll support him. As a parent, I'm like, I keep trying to ask him. I said, "Brennan, he got a scholarship. He won a scholarship. From his grades, he got a scholarship to college." So I keep trying to tell him. I said, instead of doing street, why don't you keep doing your college, and maybe look at federal or something, not law, street crime. So.
Right.
So my kids used to sit down and every once in a while would watch a show with us, and one of them stands out to me is I believe it's Trooper Poole, who used to work with.
Yeah.
Chasing a guy across the freeway up onto the embankment, screaming, "Hey, you're gonna get tased! You're gonna get tased!" So my son was probably 9 or 10 at the time, and my wife did a rolling stop through a stop sign and got pulled over. And as they're waiting for the cop to walk up, my 9-year-old leads his head around and says, "Hey, Mom, you're gonna get tased." I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I tell a cool story. I thought it was great. My oldest son, when he turned 18, he came and they live with their mom out of state. My ex-wife, he was visiting me that summer, and I always asked to go on a ride along. So I said, sure. And of course, I gave him, the full tour. I took him, I embarrassed him. I, showed him where all the crazies are. But the coolest part of the night was, this is from a fatherly cool. I stopped a guy who was passed out behind the wheel in his running car on the road. Well, the guy, when he gets out of the car, he was DUI. He was bigger than me, but when I started to do field sobriety tests on me, he basically told me where I could put my test. So when I went to arrest him, he took a swing at me, and I slammed him down to the ground, cuffed him up. And I remember afterwards, I'm walking him back to the car, and I found cocaine on him too. I'm walking back to my car, I put him in, and I said to my son, "Hey, Cameron, give me the radio." He's just staring at me. I said, "Hey, let me see the radio. I got to let them know he's under arrest." And he was like, and he goes, and I had "Cameron, come on." And he looked at me, he's like, "Whoa, Dad, you're a badass." He'd never seen that side of me.
I did want to ask your opinion if you feel comfortable talking about it, because I'm not a cop. I've never even shot a gun, never held a taser or anything like that. So obviously there's the Dante Wright shooting that happened in Minnesota. I mean, and not to speak to the officer's guilt or innocence or anything like that, that's something that has to be determined or whatnot. But I mean, how likely is it? I see here numerous stories that I see where there have been alleged incidents where cops did say that they thought they were shooting their taser. I mean, I hear there's a tremendous weight difference, a feel difference. I mean, I don't know.
Well, we practiced that. I mean, that would be, I guess my first question is, where's the training on that? Because we used to practice that a lot. And I can't remember if we weren't allowed to cross draw, so you didn't make that mistake. So, because taser would always be on my left side, weak side, because I'm right-handed. So, firearm would be right side. So I can't remember. I didn't see, I was not I was old school. I was not afraid to go hands-on with people. I didn't, because to me, and this is what I've complained about when my last year or so there was, one year we went to defensive tactics, and I remember it was, there was no ground fighting. And I remember I went up to the instructor and I said, man, what happened to ground fighting? And he said, well, we don't teach that anymore. And he said, you shouldn't end up on the ground. And I was like, yeah, I shouldn't. But I said, I should win the lottery every time I play it, but I don't. That's crazy. But they were just got, in my opinion, they just got too taser reliant. And, my son, we were just talking to my oldest son a few weeks back, and I said, have you ever been in a fight? No. He never has. It was different than mine. When I grew up, we were fighting with my friends. You beat up your friend, he beat you up. The next day, you're your best friend. Well, we were outside a lot more too. But and I just think that's what happens is they get so taser dependent that if the taser doesn't work, you're kind of stuck with you've got one option left, and that's a firearm. But I agree. Guilt or innocence, I don't know, but I don't know how you make that mistake. I don't know how you make that mistake.
We've talked amongst ourselves a couple times when these incidents come up that every altercation between a cop and a suspect, there's a gun involved. If the suspect gets the jump on you, there's a gun involved. If you don't have it out, he can take it out if he wins. Yeah. So and why he was unarmed? Yeah, but if he's charging at the cop, it doesn't matter if he's unarmed. If he gets the jump on him, now he has a gun.
Yeah. Well, and plus also, size, physical abilities, you know what I mean? It's tough. I wrote in one of the stories in my book, I had a guy, I was working a DUI detail one night, in 2014. And as I was driving by on Grand Ave, and I looked over and he had a headlight out. So, and it was a DUI detail. So I was like, all right, I'll see if maybe this is one. Well, he was waiting at the light. And as he was waiting at the light, he was smoking meth. Well, as I get this guy out of the car, this guy's 6'4", 230, 240. He was a big guy. And he started that, he's doing that stuff that meth, tweakers do, the grinding the teeth. And he was just starting to sweat and I'm so glad he kept trying to reach into his pocket. Well, as I'm not like those cop shows, I don't like when I see officers doing, you're under arrest, or I'm going to arrest you, and they pull their handcuffs out. I grabbed him and just cuffed him. And I'm glad I did. Well, he was so high on meth. This guy leaned back or jumped back and kicked me, broke my thumb, and then took off running. And then I almost wound up shooting him. But as I was getting ready to pull the trigger, his girlfriend, he got back into his car. He was able to get back in because when I went to grab my pepper spray, as he was running back towards me, I couldn't grab it with my thumb. It just fell on the ground. So I started to chase him. And then as I was getting back to my cruiser, he had gotten into his car. I'm sure his girlfriend put it in gear because he was still cuffed behind his back. But I couldn't, they wanted a charger, but I could not say beyond a reasonable doubt that, what this guy had done to me and what I watched him do, hopping barrels and almost climbing half a fence handcuffed. I said, man, this guy's so messed up. Anyhow, I forget the question. I forgot the question. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about that story. What was the question again?
I'm not sure. I was listening to the story.
I knew there was something. We were talking about something, and then arresting. Arresting. I don't know.
I remember seeing one of the officers had a kind of almost a routine when he was doing a DUI. He would have them do something with their hands where, I need you to put them out like this. All right, now put them behind your back. And then he put the cuffs on them. Oh, by the way, you're under arrest. Just so their hands are secured by the time they know they're under arrest. He already, kind of had them.
Yeah.
And, which to me seemed like the way to go because I never understand, obviously it's TV, but hey, freeze, it's the cops when they're halfway down the road. Why not to let the guy walk over to you first?
Well, you have to. Well, though I will say, when they're running, you have to yell, "Stop! Please stop!" Please,
sure, but
that way,
Before they realize there's a cop there on the shows, they always start screaming at him halfway across the city. It's like, wait, just let him get a little closer. Or
Yeah.
like Sticks was always saying, if the guy's running from you on the foot, keep driving the car until you can't, because he's going to be tired and you won't.
Yes.
I was like, the guys that hop out of the car right away, I'm like, what are you doing? Now you got to run after him the whole way. Just keep driving until he's tired.
Yeah. Well, I always tell the story of when I was an FTO. I remember my FTO, he was a great guy. We went to the Chinese buffet. I probably had 2 plates. He probably had like 4 or 5. And he was a big guy. I mean, not, he was a big guy. And I remember afterwards, I was just looking at him and I said to him, I go, hey, what happens if we get in a foot chase? And he just laughed. He's like, that's what you're here for. He goes, I drive the car, you run. I pass that wisdom on to the young guys because they'd say, when somebody bail out, I'd always keep going around in the car. And a few times I'd grab them in the apartments. And I always used to tell them, I'd say, all you guys that drive up to the scene and go chasing behind him, in an apartment complex, keep going a few more rows down. They'll run right to you.
Yeah. So you kind of had a rep on the show as having the weird interactions, just like I said, just you walking up to guys that are just some strange situations. Was that, do you think that was editing? Everybody runs into that, or did you just have a bad stretch there of just weird interactions?
No, you know what? No, it's because they're, and I won't give it all away, but in my book, I wrote about how there were 2 adult bookstores that were right in that area, and they were right off the I-17. And then you had the motel and a strip club all in that, and that was on the southbound side, the Nights Inn Hotel where I got shot. So that whole area was, it was just, it seemed like it brought out just about every degenerate you could find in the city. And I found them. So yeah, it was just, it was, well, because, and here's the other thing too, as I used to say, because a lot of those guys, a lot of those too, that they showed, it was laughable. Because I will tell you, I did catch some flack from that, from some of the bosses. But as I used to always tell them, I said, look, number one, it's not like these guys are my friends. And, I saw them when they left their house, because I might've said, hey, Daisy Duke's not really a good look on you, but they were all DUIs. And that was my thing. I said, you know what? They're DUIs.
Do you, I mean, you're one man, but you have the experience, being a trooper and in law enforcement.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any suggestions, not for the nation or anything, but like what thoughts do you think could possibly, I don't know, I don't want to say get the nation to heal, but I mean, obviously there's some discrepancies between the people who believe that there's some reform needed and, people who are working in law enforcement who think everything's hunky-dory. I mean, do you think anything needs to change? And if so, what in your mind, from maybe what you've seen or worked or know?
I from a law enforcement standpoint, the one thing I've always thought of is, and I've worked with some, is they don't talk with people. It's just, it's almost like a Joe Friday, by the book. And, that was always my biggest thing that I used to tell, talk with the younger officers or cadets was, you got to communicate, you got to talk with people. You can take care of a lot with talking, and I think that's the biggest one. The other one too is, I don't know. It's just hard. Like when, if let's say I was going to arrest somebody, I'd always get them in an arm bar. And if I felt them tensing or starting to, I would warn them, listen, right now, let's say, there's a traffic warrant, you're about to turn this into a felony. So, you know what I mean? And it's just talking. And a lot of times I could feel them start easing up, and that was always my biggest, but that, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like you said, they're just so divided. One just does not want police. And then the other, the thing about it is, like I've said, the problem is when they defund, getting back to what the caller's question, as I've said, I've worked in 2 police departments. The projects that the chief or the boss have, the colonel, those are going to stay. Patrol is the one that gets cut. So,
Right.
it just. So it's not,
on the flip side of Mike's question, what would you want to see? I mean, what can we do when we interact with the police to make things easier or better?
Yeah, that's hard. I always had like, I guess the first thing on traffic stops is, I'm sure you guys saw that video of that lady, that teacher, or she claimed to be a teacher, that was called, the reason the racist terms on that LA sheriff's deputy.
Calling him a murderer or whatever.
Yeah. That right there. I mean, I never understood that. And that was the one thing I never understood. I would walk up, say I'd stop somebody and I'd walk up on the car and they would immediately start yelling at me. And I mean, I didn't put up with it. I said, whoa, what are you doing? I said, and I used to tell them, I'd say, whoa, I mean, first of all, I'm probably one of the most lenient people you're ever going to run into, unless you're doing criminal activity. And I said, you're going to yell and scream at me, and then that's what I used to tell them afterwards. I go back, I'd say, listen, and they'd say, well, the last guy I dealt with, I said, okay, but, the last guy's not me. And the next guy, hopefully you don't have to deal with the next guy, but the next guy probably, so that was the one that I never understood. Yelling and screaming right off the bat, I mean, now you're going to put me or that other cop in a, defensive mode.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad you came on the podcast. It's been very interesting and informative.
Oh,
do you have any other final messages before I give you a nice long plug for coming on?
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. Definitely do it
We
again.
appreciate you.
Yeah, if you guys have any other questions. You guys have any other questions before?
Nah, not off the top of my head right now. We kind of went through the whole list of stuff I had.
All right.
I really appreciate it, though.
Oh, yeah, no, that's cool. I enjoy this.
I want to make sure anyone who's listening goes to jamescaseyauthor.com and looks at his new book, The Traffic Stop, A Most Dangerous Year in the Life of a Cop. And it looks like you can pre-order it there, or you're shipping it now.
I'm shipping. Yeah, no, I'm shipping now. That I just have it. Yeah, I'm not a web guy, so I know. It's out and I'm shipping. So
that's what the 18-year-old for.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you,
tech support.
I have started. I'm going to do a live PD book. And I'll also talk about the final shooting that I ultimately retired from. And it's not, it'll be, like a cameraman. I always made the joke. One of them I had, he would never laugh. I could try all I would on a live show. And he used to tell me, you'll never get me. So one night, the only night it rained in Phoenix that we were live, we pulled up and there was a prostitute working the corner and she was dressed, like a prostitute. And it was raining, it was chilly. I rolled the window down and I said, "You're very dedicated to your craft, young lady." And he started laughing and I said, "See, I got you." So, stuff like
awesome.
That'd be fun.
That's awesome. That's a great note to go out on. Well, Trooper Casey, I really appreciate you coming on The Usual Saints, and you're welcome back anytime. If you have anything else to promote or want to just pop in, we don't care. Just let us know.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. You've been listening to Usual Saints. We'll be right back.